Welcome to the world of Dreamside Traveler. Here, beneath the soothing sound of gentle rain, we journey through time and space, uncovering the mysteries of the past and diving into the most captivating pages of human history. This place is created for those who love exploring the world in the quiet of evening, for those who value peace while yearning to discover something new before sleep. If you enjoy what you're hearing, please give this video a like. It helps other people find our stories. Help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers in our club of nighttime history lovers. And the Dreamside Traveler channel will become your faithful guide to sleep. We're constantly adding new stories for your peaceful evenings. And if you have ideas about which historical topics interest you, or simply want to share your thoughts, leave comments below the video. I'm genuinely curious to know what inspires you. Now close your eyes. Feel this gentle rain outside your window. Allow yourself to relax. Our journey begins right now. Once, before the world even had a sunrise or a clock to mark the passing days, there was only chaos. Picture a great empty breath, stretching forever. No light, no sound, just the quiet possibility of everything. Out of that emptiness, Gaia, the earth, slowly awoke. Not long after, Uranus, the endless sky, appeared above her, and together they became the very first family of existence. Their love, like the meeting of earth and sky at the horizon, brought forth the Titans, gigantic beings who would make any modern family drama seem tame. Among these Titans were Cronus and Rhea. Now, you might think your family is complicated, but Cronus set a new standard for parental anxiety. He learned from a prophecy that one of his own children would someday overthrow him. Worry gnawed at him, so every time Rhea gave birth, Cronus swallowed the newborn whole. One after another, his children vanished. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon all disappeared into his stomach, as if he was eating away his own future. But when their sixth child was born, Rhea's heart could not bear it anymore. She wrapped a large stone in baby clothes and gave it to Cronus, who, without checking, gulped down the bundle. Meanwhile, she spirited the real baby away to the green, hidden island of Crete. There, on the rocky slopes of Mount Ida, a group of gentle nymphs and a magical goat named Amalthea cared for the infant Zeus. Every day, the nymphs sang, and Amalthea fed him with her rich milk. It's said that one of her horns became the cornucopia, the horn of plenty, a symbol of endless abundance. As Zeus grew, so did his power and his sense of destiny. When he was strong enough, he returned in disguise to confront Cronus. With a clever plan and maybe a secret potion, Zeus forced Cronus to disgorge his brothers and sisters, who emerged fully grown and probably quite confused. Reunited, the siblings joined forces. What followed was the Titanomachy, a war so fierce and mighty it shook the very bones of the earth. For 10 long years, yes, 10 years, not just a weekend argument, the Olympians, led by Zeus, fought the Titans. The Olympians had powerful allies. The Cyclopes, giant craftsmen with one eye each, forged thunder and lightning as weapons for Zeus. The Hecatoncheires, beings with 100 hands each, hurled stones that fell like rainstorms. At last, the Titans were defeated and cast deep into the gloomy pit of Tartarus, where their shadows still echo. The age of the Olympian gods had begun. Zeus now ruled over gods and mortals alike from the shining heights of Mount Olympus. Seated on a golden throne surrounded by shifting clouds and the scent of rain, he was the living symbol of order and authority. His voice was the thunder, his will the law. The thunderbolt, a dazzling weapon that could flatten a mountain or shatter a city, was always at his command. When storms rolled across the land, people whispered, "Zeus is awake." Not only the king, Zeus was also the god of hospitality, called Xenia. In ancient Greece, kindness to strangers was a sacred rule, and a rude host could expect a flash of cosmic justice. Zeus's power extended everywhere. The law, the weather, fate, and even the simple act of sharing bread with a guest. How did people imagine him? Tall, broad-shouldered, with flowing hair and a thick, curling beard. His gaze flashed like lightning, and his expression often hovered between gentle and commanding. Draped in magnificent robes, crowned with an olive wreath or surrounded by lightning, Zeus looked every bit the ruler of heaven and earth. His image inspired sculptors to carve giants from marble and painters to fill their walls with scenes of his might. But Zeus was not alone at the top. His wife, Hera, was both his partner and his challenger. She was the goddess of marriage and queen of the gods, famous for her dignity and her grudges. Their relationship was, let us say, stormy. While Hera was loyal to her vows, Zeus was known for roaming far and wide, both in Olympus and across the mortal world. His love life was the source of endless stories. Sometimes he disguised himself as an eagle, a swan, a golden shower, or even a gentle breeze to approach mortal women or goddesses he desired. Europa saw him as a magnificent bull. Danae received him as golden rain. Leda met him as a swan. Every story, unique and strange, led to the birth of famous children. There was Athena, who sprang from his forehead fully armed. There were Apollo and Artemis, twin gods of music and the hunt. Hermes the messenger, Heracles the hero, Perseus the slayer of monsters, Dionysus the god of wine and joy, and Helen, whose beauty would one day cause a war that echoed through history. The gods themselves often tangled in a web of jealousy, rivalry, and secret plots. Hera, for example, punished many of Zeus's lovers and their children. Even the gods could not always escape the consequences of desire and ambition. Zeus's actions shaped not just his own fate, but the fates of heroes and mortals everywhere. His power was not uncontested. The mighty Titan Prometheus dared to give fire to humans, a gift that changed civilization forever. For this, Zeus chained him to a lonely mountain, where each day an eagle devoured Prometheus's liver. New liver grew each night, and the torment began anew. Then there was Typhon, a monstrous creature born of Gaia to avenge the fallen Titans. Typhon hurled mountains and roared like a storm, almost defeating Zeus before being buried beneath Mount Etna, where volcanoes now rumble. Across Greece, Zeus was worshipped with deep respect and sometimes awe. Olympia, home of the Grand Olympic Games, became his sacred ground every 4 years. There, athletes competed without clothes. Yes, truly, showing their strength as a tribute to the gods. The grand temple of Zeus in Olympia, with its towering gold and ivory statue, was counted among the 7 wonders of the ancient world. People made sacrifices of bulls and rams, hoping to earn Zeus's favor or at least avoid his wrath. Oracles, such as the one at Dodona, interpreted the will of Zeus by listening to the rustling of ancient oaks. In Athens, while Athena was the city's namesake, great temples honored Zeus as well, including the colossal Olympian, which took over 6 centuries to build. Throughout these stories, Zeus's role was always clear: to maintain balance, to enforce justice, and to remind all gods and mortals alike that chaos was only ever one angry thundercloud away. He could be generous and protective, but also swift to punish pride or disrespect. Even today, his name endures in languages and tales, echoing as Deus in Latin, Theos in Greek, and as Jupiter, king of the planets. So next time you hear the roll of thunder or see lightning flash across the sky, remember the old tales. Perhaps, somewhere above, the great Father of gods and men is watching, ready to remind the world of his strength and his mystery. Sleep well tonight, knowing that the world above is as full of stories as the world below. Long before the clouds became thrones in the sky, and thunder learned the rules of etiquette, before marble temples and whispered wedding vows, there was Hera. She was not a child of chaos, but the daughter of royalty, born to the titans Cronus and Rhea, in a world that was slowly transforming from wildness into order. Hera's beginning was not gentle. Like her brothers and sisters, she was swallowed whole by her father, Cronus, who feared that one of his children would overthrow him. In that strange darkness she waited, never losing her dignity or her calm. And when Zeus, her younger brother, grew strong enough to challenge Cronus, Hera was reborn into the world, a goddess forged by patience, not by rebellion. Unlike Zeus, whose power crackled and flashed, Hera's power was quiet, steady, and unstoppable. She was not meant to surprise the world, but to sustain it. From the very start, Hera was the spirit of order. Where Zeus stormed, she restored peace. Where he acted on wild impulse, she weighed, judged, and set boundaries. She was the goddess of marriage, of family, of womanhood, of childbirth, and of all the oaths that hold lives together. Hers was the strength that made promises unbreakable, and her influence ran deeper than thunderbolts. If you try to picture her, imagine not just beauty, but the kind that commands respect. Serene, regal, and impossible to ignore. Her golden crown sat perfectly atop her brow. Her robes shimmered like moonlight on polished stone, and her eyes, sharp, knowing, bright as eagle wings, seemed to look right through the heart. Hera's beauty did not flirt, it dared. People did not whistle at her. They bowed, apologizing in their hearts for their shortcomings and wondering, just for a moment, what it would be like to be truly faithful. She was never alone. Around her walked the peacock, with feathers like jeweled eyes, each said to come from her loyal servant Argus, who once watched over one of Zeus's lovers. The gentle cow was sacred to her too, a symbol of motherly care, but also of quiet, unstoppable strength. And so we come to Hera's marriage, a union that was both legend and warning, the most famous couple of Olympus. Only Hera, among all Zeus's loves, became his wife. Their bond was not a fairy tale. It was a partnership of opposites, sky and earth, chaos and order, lightning and calm. Together they ruled the gods, but togetherness was never simple. Zeus's habit of wandering, of shape-shifting, and of chasing others never truly escaped Hera's notice. She was the goddess of marriage and loyalty. Her husband was not. If she could not stop his adventures, she made her anger known. Sometimes, with a whisper, she twisted fate against his lovers and their children. Sometimes with transformation, sometimes with curses, and always with a determination that gods and mortals alike could not ignore. Semele, Io, Leto, Alcmene, names that echoed with stories of jealousy and vengeance. Sometimes Hera turned women into animals, set monsters to follow them, or made their days as difficult as a summer without rain. Was she petty? Perhaps. But she was powerful. Her anger had a poetry, and her punishments often echoed long after the moment had passed. And honestly, if your partner ruled the sky and never kept a promise, would you not want the world to feel your wrath? But Hera was not all anger. She was the enforcer of cosmic rules. When mortals broke their vows, when liars, oath-breakers, or those who disrespected the sacred trust of marriage thought they could escape, Hera's justice was swift and sure. Sometimes it was madness, sometimes misfortune, sometimes a sudden twist of fate. Yet when Hera was calm and pleased, the world seemed to blossom. Crops grew high, families thrived, and the gods found peace around her. Even the other gods respected her boundaries. Athena, the wise, watched her mother's moods with care. Hermes, the quick, did not joke at her expense. Ares, the bold, knew to be careful. Even Zeus himself would try to win her favor with gifts, temples, and gentle words, though often it was not enough. Hera was more than a queen, she was a legend. One of the oldest temples in Greece stood for her on Samos, her mythic birthplace, where people traveled for blessing and forgiveness. Another in Argos became a center of faith and festival, where women held athletic games in her honor, celebrating their own strength and endurance. At her festivals, called the Heria, women gathered in processions, carried offerings, and showed that true power could be both quiet and unshakable. Hera's stories are everywhere in the myths. In the Trojan War, she supported the Greeks, driven by an old wound, the moment Paris, a young prince, named Aphrodite as the most beautiful goddess instead of Hera. Her revenge was patient, clever, and relentless, spreading across the battlefield in ways only the queen of gods could manage. And then there is Heracles, his very name meaning the glory of Hera, a reminder of her complicated place in his story. As a child, Hera tried to end him with serpents. As a man, she tested him with 12 impossible tasks, each a trial of strength and will. Was it harsh? Yes. But in myth, challenge makes heroes, and Hera's trials shaped Heracles into a legend. Sometimes her stories are sad, sometimes fierce, but always unforgettable. Io, a priestess who caught Zeus's eye, was turned into a cow to hide her from Hera. Hera, not fooled, demanded the cow as a gift, and set Argus with 100 eyes to watch over her. When Zeus sent Hermes to rescue Io and Argus fell, Hera placed Argus's eyes forever in the peacock's tail, turning loss into beauty. Even now, Hera's name shines far beyond the myths. In art, she is the face of dignity and royalty. In astronomy, her name lives on with asteroids. In culture, she is a symbol of sacred promise and the unbroken strength of women. Where Zeus ruled with thunder and surprise, Hera ruled with wisdom and rules. She was the foundation on which everything else could be built. Beneath the ancient stories, behind the dramatic feuds and moments of jealousy, there is a deeper truth. Hera is the symbol of the unchanging, the one who endures. She shows us that promises matter, that loyalty is strength, and that the calm at the center can outlast even the greatest storm. So as you close your eyes tonight, imagine Hera's presence, calm, proud, and watching over you like the stars shining in a deep blue sky. Let her strength remind you that dignity cannot be taken. Let her story teach you to honor your promises and value your worth. Sleep under her watchful gaze, and dream with the courage to rule your own world, just as she rules hers. Before the oceans had a heartbeat, before wild horses galloped across ancient meadows, before islands rose from nothing but salt and dreams, there was Poseidon. Not just a god, but the living energy of every storm, every tide, every hidden trench beneath the waves. He was the brother of Zeus and Hades, and when the world was new, the gods sat together, deciding their fates and claiming their kingdoms like old friends sharing slices of bread. Zeus reached for the endless sky, Hades took the shadows of the underworld, and Poseidon, with a glint in his sea-blue eyes, chose the deep, restless waters, the ever-moving ocean. But Poseidon's story, like those of his brothers and sisters, began in darkness. Born to Cronus and Rhea, he was swallowed whole by his father, trapped in the strange silence of the Titan's belly, all because Cronus feared a prophecy of being overthrown by his own children. Imagine a god of waves confined to absolute stillness. Years passed until Zeus, full of courage and destiny, broke the curse, and Poseidon tumbled back into the light, ready to claim his part of the world. Poseidon never forgot the taste of freedom. His domain was not just the sea, but every river, every spring, every lake, and the trembling land itself. His moods shaped the world, one day calm, the next day raging, all depending on his mysterious will. When Poseidon was angry, the ground could split apart in a sudden earthquake, and whole coastlines might vanish beneath monstrous waves. Sailors watched the horizon with hope and fear, whispering his name with trembling lips as they set out on their journeys. It was said that a single glance from Poseidon could sink 1,000 ships, or calm a storm with the gentlest touch. Poseidon's appearance was unforgettable. Picture a god tall and powerful, shoulders wide as the ocean itself, hair tangled and damp with salt, beard flecked with sea foam. His eyes carried the shifting blue of the deepest sea. In one hand he always held his trident, a massive three-pronged spear, the key to his power. With it, he could stir the waves, summon storms, or split open the earth. ancient artists sculpted him rising from the surf, muscles tense, always halfway between fury and majesty, as if he had just leapt from a breaking wave, or was about to bring the ocean roaring down upon the land. His powers went far beyond the sea. Poseidon was lord of earthquakes, the earth shaker, because the Greeks believed he could make the ground tremble with a blow of his trident. He was also the creator of horses, animals as wild and untamed as the surf. Some legends say that Poseidon shaped the very first horse from sea foam and gave it the power to run like the wind itself. That is why he was worshipped by those who loved the open plain as much as the open water. He was god of fresh springs and underground rivers, believed to bring water and life where none could be found. All this made Poseidon a god of both giving and taking, creation and destruction, beloved and feared by all. Poseidon's heart was as wild as the waves. Like his brother Zeus, he was drawn to many lovers, both mortal and immortal, and the stories of his pursuits fill the old tales. His queen was Aphrodite, a sea goddess and one of the Nereids. At first, she wanted nothing to do with Poseidon and fled to the farthest edge of the world. But Poseidon, determined and creative, sent a friendly dolphin to speak on his behalf. The dolphin charmed Aphrodite, who finally agreed to become Poseidon's wife. As a reward, Poseidon placed the dolphin among the stars, where it shines as a constellation to this day. But not all Poseidon stories are joyful. In one myth, he met Medusa, a beautiful priestess of Athena. After Poseidon forced himself upon her in Athena's temple, the furious goddess transformed Medusa into a gorgon, her hair replaced with snakes, her gaze turning mortals to stone. The myths sometimes show justice as a storm, harsh, confusing, and unpredictable. Poseidon's children were as varied as the ocean's moods. Some were heroes, like Theseus, the brave defender of Athens. Some were monsters, like Polyphemus, the Cyclops with a single eye, who met Odysseus during his long voyage home. Triton, Poseidon's son, blew a conch shell to calm or stir the sea. And then there were the immortal horses, like Arion, born from Poseidon's union with Demeter, who once turned herself into a mare to escape him. But he, in turn, became a stallion and caught her. That is why so many Greek myths about heroes and gods include magical horses and sea creatures. Poseidon was a god who remembered every slight. His grudges were legendary. When he and Athena competed to be the patron of Athens, Poseidon struck the ground with his trident and made a spring of salt water appear. Athena, clever and wise, offered the olive tree. The people chose Athena's gift, and Poseidon, angry, sent floods and storms to remind them not to forget the power of the sea. He never let go of a grudge. Ask Odysseus, whose journey home took 10 years of shipwrecks, monsters, and disasters, all because he blinded Poseidon's son, Polyphemus. People across Greece honored Poseidon, especially those who lived near the sea or made their living by fishing and sailing. In the great city of Corinth, Poseidon's temple stood close to the water, where horse races and festivals took place in his name. At Cape Saunion, his sanctuary sat high on the cliffs, its columns watching the endless blue, a beacon for every ship. Before a long voyage, sailors would cut their hair and throw it into the sea, or offer prized bulls and handmade gifts to win his favor, hoping for gentle waves and safe returns. Poseidon's stories are woven into the oldest legends. He helped build the walls of Troy for King Laomedon, but when the king refused to pay, Poseidon sent a sea monster to punish him. When King Minos of Crete broke a promise and kept a magical bull for himself, Poseidon caused Minos' wife to fall in love with the animal, leading to the birth of the Minotaur, the creature of the labyrinth. In some myths, Poseidon helped Zeus flood the world to wipe out the wicked and begin again, proving that his power could both destroy and renew. To the Greeks, Poseidon was more than a god. He was the ocean itself, glorious, terrifying, sometimes gentle, sometimes violent, always mysterious. He was the pulse beneath every wave, the voice behind every storm, the master of horses and earthquakes, the ruler of a world that could never be tamed. Even now, in stories, in art, and in the stars, Poseidon's spirit is alive. His Roman name, Neptune, rides with our imaginations to other worlds. And when the wind howls or the waves crash against the shore, or when a horse gallops wild and free across a field, there is a sense that Poseidon is close, smiling or scowling, depending on his mood. So tonight, as you listen to the gentle sound of the sea or the low rumble of distant thunder, remember Poseidon. Imagine him, trident in hand, eyes as deep as the abyss, watching over the waves and the world. May his power rock you softly to sleep, and may your dreams be as wide and wild as the endless blue. Before anyone ever whispered words of love beneath ancient olive trees, before roses carried secret meanings or mirrors showed the face of desire, there was Aphrodite. She was not born in the ordinary way, but rose from the foam of the sea, created by a clash of gods and a wave of wild magic. Her arrival was not gentle. From the very first moment, she was the embodiment of beauty and longing, floating above the surf as if the world itself made room for her passage. Aphrodite's story begins with the sky god Uranus, whose fall from power sent his essence into the ocean. The sea frothed and boiled, and from that white foam emerged Aphrodite, glorious, complete, untouchable. She stepped onto the shore of Cyprus, and wherever her feet touched, flowers sprang to life, birds began to sing, and the very air shimmered with possibility. Even the gods, usually so proud, stopped to marvel at her. She was not just beautiful. She was the very idea of beauty, and every standard set afterwards was just an echo of her presence. Her eyes sparkled with secrets. Her hair shone like gold in sunlight, and her skin seemed kissed by moonlight. Her smile promised both joy and chaos, and her walk had the calm grace of water slipping over smooth stones. She wore robes so light they looked spun from clouds, and carried the scent of wild roses, salt air, and something impossible to name. When Aphrodite appeared, the world stopped to watch, not daring to breathe too loudly. Yet her power was not only in appearance. She was desire itself, raw, mysterious, sometimes sweet, sometimes dangerous. With a single glance, Aphrodite could turn friends into rivals, rivals into lovers, lovers into legends. She carried a magic girdle that made her irresistible, but honestly, she never really needed it. People didn't just look at her, they worshipped her. Her domain was every heartbeat, every blush, every longing sigh that ever swept across the world. But there was a sharp edge to her magic. If you honored Aphrodite, she could bring warmth and connection, making life bloom with love and joy. But ignore her, mock her, or swear yourself against love, and she might answer with heartbreak, obsession, or a longing that never quite heals. No vow, no matter how strong, could fully escape her influence. Aphrodite's love life is the stuff of endless stories. The gods arranged her marriage to Hephaestus, the master craftsman, hoping to tame her wildness with stability. He loved her dearly, gifting her jewels and inventions. She, however, was rarely interested. Instead, her passions often wandered to Ares, the god of war, whose fierce energy matched her own. Their affair was famous even among the gods, and when Hephaestus finally trapped them in an unbreakable net, the laughter in Olympus shook the stars themselves. Among mortals, few could resist her. Adonis, a young man of extraordinary beauty, captured her heart. She protected him, cherished him, and loved him deeply, but fate was cruel. When Adonis died, Aphrodite's grief gave birth to red roses, petals stained with love and sorrow. She also fell for Anchises, a simple shepherd, disguising herself as a mortal to be close to him. When he boasted of his lover, Zeus punished him, reminding all that loving a goddess could be as dangerous as it was thrilling. Aphrodite was never afraid to defend her title. In the famous Judgment of Paris, a mortal prince was asked to choose the fairest goddess. Hera promised power, Athena promised wisdom and victory, but Aphrodite offered him the love of Helen, the most beautiful mortal woman. Paris chose her, setting in motion the Trojan War. Even love, when it is strong enough, can move armies and change the world. Artists and poets adored Aphrodite. The sculptor Pygmalion fell so deeply for a statue he carved that Aphrodite brought it to life, showing her mercy and playful spirit. She inspired countless works of art, from delicate vases and mosaics in ancient Cyprus and Corinth to the world-famous painting by Botticelli, where she stands on a seashell, forever young and forever adored. Her temples were many. In Cyprus, people came from far and wide to seek her blessings, young lovers, those hoping for children, even kings and queens in search of peace at home. Her priestesses led rituals that celebrated the power of connection and attraction. In Corinth, sacred courtesans served at her temple, making love itself an act of worship. Even in Athens, where wisdom was prized, Aphrodite's temples thrived, especially as Aphrodite Pandemos, the protector of common bonds and civic unity. Aphrodite had many names and many faces. As Urania, she was heavenly love. As Pandemos, she brought people together. As Anadyomene, she rose from the sea, eternally new. Through every form, she shaped how people thought about beauty, passion, and the magic that links hearts together. Yet her lessons were always deeper than simple romance. She taught that love is not weakness, but strength. To care, to desire, to reach for someone, these were not things to hide, but gifts to cherish. At times, Aphrodite could be vain or even petty, but who wouldn't be? Knowing their very presence could start wars or heal broken souls. So tonight, as you drift to sleep, imagine Aphrodite walking beside the waves, her laughter echoing over the water, the scent of roses in the air. May your dreams be soft and bright, full of gentle touches and whispered secrets. Remember, you are never far from love's reach, and beauty, true beauty, lives not just in the eyes of the goddess, but in every act of kindness, every spark of longing, every smile that lights the dark. If you ever doubt your worth, know that even Aphrodite would stop to watch you, and with a knowing smile declare you beautiful too. When the world was still new and shadows stretched long across the land, Hades stepped quietly into his role as lord of the underworld. He was the brother of Zeus and Poseidon, and their fates were decided by drawing lots after the Titans fell. Zeus took the sky, Poseidon claimed the rolling sea, and Hades, silent and steady, accepted the realm beneath the earth, the hidden place where souls gathered after life's last breath. At first, mortals feared his name, thinking of him only as the god of death. But Hades was not a destroyer, not a spirit who hunted or punished without cause. His power was not about ending, but about guarding, balancing, keeping what is precious safe in the deep and silent world below. He did not crave attention, nor did he boast. Instead, he ruled with calm certainty, understanding that every journey must have a destination and every story an ending. The underworld was no simple pit of misery. It was a landscape as intricate as the world above, with fields, rivers, meadows, and boundaries. There was the river Styx, cold and sacred, the place where even gods swore unbreakable oaths. The river Lethe, gentle and misty, let souls forget their mortal cares and drift in peaceful forgetfulness. There was the river Acheron, flowing with sorrow, the fiery Phlegethon, and Cocytus, the river of lament. All these flowed through the underworld like veins through the body, giving the place a strange kind of life. At the gate stood Cerberus, a giant dog with 3 heads, each watchful and loyal only to Hades. Beyond lay the asphodel meadows, where ordinary souls wandered in a kind of quiet dream, remembering and forgetting. For the best and bravest, there was the Elysian fields, a shining paradise of heroes and poets. For those who broke sacred laws or betrayed trust, there was Tartarus, a deep, shadowy prison, more a consequence than a punishment. Hades himself sat upon a throne carved from the darkest stone, his face calm, his beard long, a crown resting on his brow. He wore a cloak that seemed woven from night itself, and in his hands he held a scepter, a mark of stewardship, not conquest. Among his treasures was the helm of invisibility, a gift from the Cyclopes, which allowed him to walk unseen through any realm, slipping quietly between worlds, present but rarely noticed. Unlike Zeus with his thunder or Poseidon with his storms, Hades was never flashy. His presence was quiet, weighty, and inescapable, like the knowledge that the night always returns. He was often misunderstood, sometimes even avoided, but those who truly knew him saw dignity, patience, and the gentle balance of endings and beginnings. The most famous story tied to Hades is that of Persephone, the daughter of Demeter. Persephone was the maiden of spring, dancing in bright fields, her laughter echoing across the hills. Hades, watching from his realm, saw not just her beauty but her light, and he yearned, not to possess, but to share. One day the earth opened, and Persephone disappeared into the shadows below. Many say she was taken, but the stories shift. Some speak of curiosity, others of fate, and some of a quiet love that grew between two very different souls. In the underworld, Persephone brought color and newness, and Hades gave her respect and partnership. When she ate the pomegranate seeds, some say by accident, others say by choice, she became bound to the underworld for part of each year. When she returned to her mother above, the world blossomed. When she went below, the earth grew cold, and the world mourned her absence. Thus, Hades and Persephone became the rhythm of the seasons, life and death in gentle harmony. To mortals, Hades was more than a god of endings. He was called Pluton, the wealthy one, for beneath the earth were all the world's treasures, gold, silver, fertile soil, and the memories of all who had gone before. His priests spoke in whispers. His rites were solemn and respectful, often held in caves or beneath the ground, away from sunlight. People offered black animals, grains, and honey, hoping not for favor, but for peace and understanding. Hades appears in many myths. When Orpheus, the great musician, came to plead for his lost love Eurydice, Hades was moved by the depth of Orpheus's song and agreed to let her return, but only if Orpheus did not look back on the way. When Heracles, the hero, came to fetch Cerberus as his final task, Hades allowed it, on the condition that Heracles used no weapons and did no harm. Hades was not cruel, but steadfast, always upholding the natural order. He is never easy to define. He is not a monster or a devil, but the ruler of what must come for everyone. He is the peace that follows chaos, the keeper of memory, the quiet at the end of every journey. Without Hades, there would be no endings, but without endings, nothing new could ever begin. He reminds us that silence has a purpose, that loss is not always pain, and that beneath every shadow there can be rest and even hope. So now, as you lie down, feel your breath slow and your thoughts drift. Imagine the gentle darkness as not an end, but a safe place to rest. Imagine a kingdom where every memory is cherished, where the stories of the past wait quietly to be remembered again. Hades watches over this realm not with fear or threat, but with patience and care. You are not lost in the dark. You are held gently in the arms of night, and from this peace you will rise to new days and new stories. No goddess ever entered the world the way Athena did. There was no soft cradle, no lullaby, no gentle first breath. Instead, with a crack that split the heavens, Athena leapt fully grown from the forehead of Zeus, her father, the king of the gods. Zeus, worried by a prophecy that his child with the wise goddess Medes would be greater than himself, tried to outsmart fate by swallowing Medes whole. But wisdom has a way of surviving. From his thoughts, Athena grew patient and powerful, until at last she emerged in a burst of light, her armor shining, a spear in her hand, and eyes as sharp and calm as a morning in spring. Athena's arrival was not a cry for help, but a statement of purpose. She stood among the gods, ready and aware, and everyone there understood. A new kind of power had arrived, not wild like Artemis, not playful like Hermes, not stormy like Zeus. Athena was something different. She was clarity, order, and invention. She was wisdom made visible. Her beauty was not the gentle warmth of flowers or the soft glow of firelight. Athena's beauty was in the lines of her face, the calm of her voice, the way her movements wasted nothing. Her hair was dark as a polished stone, her eyes gray as the first light over marble, and every word she spoke sounded considered, balanced, and true. Mortals and gods alike found themselves wanting to do better in her presence, not out of fear, but out of inspiration. Athena ruled over both war and wisdom. But her wars were not the chaos of her half-brother Ares, who fought out of rage. Athena's battles were fought for purpose, guided by strategy, and won with courage and thought. She was the mind behind the victory, the hand that drew up plans, the voice that said, "Wait, think." To blacksmiths, architects, and inventors, Athena was the muse who whispered new ideas. She was the judge who listened carefully, the leader who let others grow strong beside her. She believed that true courage was not just running into danger, but daring to think differently, to speak up for justice, to help others solve problems with patience and care. In myth, Athena appears as a guide. When Odysseus needed help returning home, it was Athena's clever advice, not just his strength, that saved him from monsters and storms. When Perseus set out to face Medusa, Athena gave him both tools and wisdom to succeed. Even Achilles, the fiercest of warriors, listened when Athena spoke reason. There was a time when the gods competed to become patron of a new city in Greece. Poseidon struck the earth with his trident and made a spring appear, but the water was salty. Athena, instead, offered the olive tree, humble, resilient, bearing fruit, oil, and wood. The people wisely chose Athena's gift, naming their city Athens and making her their eternal protector. To this day, the olive tree remains sacred to her, a sign of peace, patience, and a gift that endures. Athena was famously known as a virgin goddess, but her virginity meant something different than it does for mortals. It symbolized her independence, her wholeness. She belonged to no one. She was complete in herself, loving those who sought wisdom, giving guidance to those who needed it, but never defined by anyone else's story. She showed that dignity and autonomy are powerful armor. Athena's stories are full of lessons, not just victories, but the costs and complexities of being wise. When Medusa, once a beautiful priestess in Athena's temple, was harmed by Poseidon, Athena transformed her into a gorgon. Some say it was punishment, others see it as protection, a way to make Medusa so fearsome that no man would hurt her again. The story is complicated, full of pain and ambiguity. Another tale is of Arachne, a mortal weaver who boasted that her skills surpassed even the goddess's own. Rather than punishing her at once, Athena challenged her to a contest. Arachne's weaving was flawless, but full of scenes showing the gods' mistakes. Athena, both proud and angered, turned Arachne into a spider, so she would weave forever. In this story, Athena teaches about pride, truth, and the risks of challenging what is sacred. During the great battle with the giants, Athena fought not with fury but with brilliance. She defeated the giant Pallas and made a shield from his skin, earning the name Pallas Athena, a symbol of memory, strength, and skill. Her sacred symbols are everywhere. The owl, her wise companion, sees what others miss in both night and day. The aegis, her shield, often depicted with the head of Medusa, could inspire awe or turn enemies to stone. The olive tree remains her peaceful gift to the world, and her greatest temple, the Parthenon, still stands on the Acropolis of Athens, filled with statues of gold and ivory, a place not only for prayer, but for thought and learning. Athena's spirit remains alive today. She lives in libraries, in schools, in courtrooms, and in quiet workshops where ideas take shape. She is present wherever people dare to plan, to invent, to ask hard questions, or to teach others. She is the voice that says, "You have the tools, use them. Think first, be wise, be brave." So tonight, as your mind begins to quiet and your thoughts flutter down like feathers, imagine Athena's calm gaze watching over you. Know that true power is not loud, that cleverness is a kind of strength, and that dignity is the best shield. May your dreams be clear, may your mind be at peace, and may you always remember. Athena stands beside you, steady and strong, ready to guide you whenever you need her. Before the world turned fully toward the sun, before temples rang with music or priests breathed secrets into sacred darkness, there was Apollo, a god who arrived not into comfort, but into struggle. His mother Leto, gentle and strong, wandered across the world, her every step hounded by the anger of Hera. For Hera, in her jealous rage, had cursed Leto so that no land under the sun would offer her refuge to give birth. Desperate and exhausted, Leto finally found sanctuary on the floating island of Delos, a place neither fixed nor claimed, and there beneath swaying palms her twins were born. First came Artemis, calm and cool as moonlight, then Apollo, radiant and golden, his very first cry stirring the dawn. From that moment, Apollo was marked by light. He was not just a sun god in title, he was the very idea of clarity, brilliance, and creative fire. His hair shone like gold poured over his shoulders, his eyes held the calm of endless blue sky. He carried a lyre crafted by Hermes, its strings shining with music, and wore a crown of laurel in memory of lost love. Tall, slender, and perfectly poised, Apollo seemed shaped by sunlight and dreams. Even the muses, goddesses of inspiration, gathered around him, their songs and poems made brighter by his presence. Apollo's gifts were endless and varied. He was god of music, poetry, and all the arts, inspiring mortals to sing, paint, and dream. When he played his lyre, wild beasts grew gentle, and even the restless hearts of mortals found peace. He was also god of healing. His touch could soothe fevers and mend wounds, yet he could just as easily send plague to punish disrespect. Apollo's power was always a double-edged sword, his light both blessing and warning. He was the god of prophecy, master of riddles and hidden truth. In Delphi, at the heart of Greece, Apollo's temple became the center of the ancient world. There, high on the mountain slopes, the oracle spoke in his name, her words flowing from sacred vapors, her visions shaping the fate of kings and empires. Mortals and gods alike came to seek his guidance, finding answers cloaked in poetry, but always filled with meaning. Apollo was clarity in mystery, the light that revealed and also the shadow that kept secrets. He was an archer whose arrows flew swift and true, symbols of both precision and fate. His aim never missed, and when his anger was roused, no one god or mortal could escape his justice. Later, he was linked with Helios, the shining sun, said to drive the chariot of daylight across the sky, casting golden beams over land and sea. But Apollo was more than power. He was beauty, love, and longing. His heart was never still, and his stories were filled with joy and sorrow. He loved many nymphs, mortals, gods. Each love left its mark, shaping myths and memories. He pursued Daphne, who fled his passion and became a laurel tree. Apollo honored her forever by wearing her leaves as his crown. He loved Hyacinthus, a gentle youth whose tragic death brought forth the flower that bears his name, proof that even heartbreak can grow into beauty. He gave Cassandra the gift of prophecy. But when she refused his love, he twisted her gift so that none would believe her warnings. A curse that carried tragedy through the fall of Troy. Apollo's lessons were always double-edged. Even his kindness could be dangerous, and his punishment could carry a strange mercy. He defended his mother's honor with a vengeance, striking down Niobe's children when she mocked Leto. He defeated the Python, the serpent of Delphi, claiming the sacred site for himself. To celebrate his victory, the Pythian Games were held every 4 years, a tradition that inspired the later Olympic Games. Apollo was worshipped across Greece and beyond. His statues stood in every city tall, golden, the picture of perfect youth. His sacred animals were the swan and the wolf, his plants the laurel and the palm. Festivals in his honor were full of music, poetry, and sunlight. At Delphi, people from distant lands brought offerings, hoping for wisdom, healing, or inspiration. Yet for all his perfection, Apollo's stories are tinged with sadness and longing. Love for him was never simple, always bright, always burning, but often fleeting and sometimes tragic. But even in loss, Apollo left behind music, poetry, and flowers. A reminder that the things we create outlast even the sharpest pain. To the Greeks, Apollo was the sun that rises each day, the light that makes seeds grow, the song that calls us to hope and create. He is the warm touch on your face at sunrise, the spark that pushes you to learn, to sing, to write, to heal, to reach for more. He is the promise that knowledge and beauty are always worth chasing, even if perfection is just out of reach. So as you drift into sleep, feel Apollo's golden warmth settle gently over your thoughts. Let his music calm your heart, his light chase away any fears. In your dreams, may you find inspiration. May your troubles fade like shadows at dawn, and may you wake ready to shine again, with Apollo guiding you, always toward the light. Before there were cities, before marble columns and crowded streets, before anyone thought of dividing the land or naming every star, there was Artemis. She belonged to the wild, to the hush of forests and the silver shadows beneath the moon. Artemis did not claim a throne of gold or ask for crowns. Her kingdom was freedom, stretching wherever trees whispered and rivers wandered, wherever wild things lived unafraid. Her birth was shaped by struggle. Her mother, Leto, gentle and brave, wandered in exile, pursued by Hera's anger, rejected by every land, every island, every stone. Only on Delos, a floating island unclaimed by earth or sea, could Leto finally rest. Beneath a sky alive with stars, Artemis was born first, radiant and watchful. And then, with a steady hand, she helped bring her twin brother Apollo into the world, already a protector, already a guide. From the start, Artemis belonged to herself. She grew up running where no road led, learning the language of animals and the secrets of the woods. Her beauty was fierce, a flash of limbs in the dawn, a shadow at the edge of the glade, hair tied back for speed and eyes that glowed cool and clear in the dark. She wore short tunics for freedom, carried a silver bow that never missed, and moved as quietly as falling snow. All creatures of the forest knew her, but none were tamed. Deer grazed at her side, wolves and bears followed her, birds sang above her path. To see Artemis in the wild was both blessing and warning. Her presence meant safety for the gentle, but swift justice for the careless or cruel. She was the goddess of the hunt, but her hunt was not just about chasing prey. She guarded the balance between life and death. Hunters prayed to her not for victory, but for respect, respect for the land, for animals, for the mysteries of the wild. She punished pride and protected the humble. The untamed world was her temple. Mountains, groves, springs, the places where humans still remembered how to be quiet and listen. Artemis became the moon's companion, glowing above the earth, watching over the night. She was not born as a moon goddess, but soon her name was spoken with Selene, the ancient spirit of the moon. And together they watched over travelers, wanderers, and all who moved beneath the shifting silver light. Her vows were clear and unbreakable. From childhood, Artemis asked Zeus for freedom. Freedom never to marry, to roam as she pleased, to lead her band of nymphs, and to help women in childbirth, though she herself would never have children. Zeus, both amused and impressed, agreed. Artemis never gave up her independence. Suitors and flattery meant nothing to her. Those who crossed her boundaries or disrespected her laws paid dearly, but she was never cruel without reason. Her justice was as swift as an arrow, as silent as the turning moon. Many myths surround Artemis. When Actaeon, a young hunter, stumbled upon her bathing, he did not turn away. Artemis transformed him into a stag, and his own hounds, not knowing, brought his end. It was not revenge, but a lesson in respect and boundaries. Orion, the great hunter, walked beside Artemis. Some say as a friend, some say as something more. In one story, he tried to claim her and was struck down. In another, Apollo tricked Artemis into shooting him from afar. Grieving, she placed Orion among the stars, so he could run forever across the night sky. Her follower Callisto was seduced and shamed by Zeus. Bound by her vows, Artemis at first banished Callisto, but later her heart softened. She set Callisto and her son among the constellations, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, so they would always be free, always running under the stars. Worship of Artemis stretched across the Greek world. In Ephesus, her temple was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, a place where she was revered not only as a huntress, but as a great mother, echoing older goddess traditions. In Broron, girls served Artemis, learning strength and courage as they passed from childhood to adulthood. Her rites were held outside, beneath trees, beside springs, with offerings of fruit, garlands, and wild animals. People asked not for gold, but for freedom, clarity, and the strength to walk their own path. Artemis is more than a myth. She is the wild, untamed heart that beats in everyone, the voice that says you are enough on your own, the guide who teaches that silence can be safety, that boundaries are sacred, and that true strength is sometimes quiet. She is the protector of those who choose differently, who walk alone, who say, "This is mine." She is the cool breath of night on your skin, the comfort of solitude, the thrill of running through darkness unafraid. So as you settle down to sleep, feel the peace of the forest at night, the slow hush, the gentle breath of leaves, the soft footfall of hidden creatures. Let Artemis, eternal guardian of wild places, watch over your dreams. You are safe. You are free. And somewhere in the moonlit shadows, the goddess runs beside you, sure and strong, forever untamed. In the shining halls of Olympus, where wisdom and poetry were often praised above all, there was one god who did not care for pretty words or clever plans. Ares, the god of war, was the storm that broke through silence, the clash and cry of battle made real. He did not wait for applause. He did not ask for anyone's respect. He arrived with the roar of 1,000 soldiers, and when he left, nothing was ever the same. Ares was born to Zeus and Hera, which should have meant privilege and pride. But even among the gods, Ares was often left out. Zeus, his own father, found Ares rough and reckless, loving Athena's cleverness more than Ares's raw strength. The other gods mocked him, sometimes feared him, but none truly embraced him. And yet, when war threatened, when enemies gathered outside city walls and fear took root, mortals still prayed to Ares, for it is the raw courage of the warrior that stands when all else fails. He was not the general at a map, nor the hero giving speeches before a charge. Ares was the very heat and fury of battle, the wild fire in your chest when you fight for someone you love, the primal strength that rises when your back is to the wall. He was tall and broad, his armor burning like red-hot iron, his eyes bright with ferocity. His hair tumbled wild, and his voice was a growl in the din of chaos. He carried a spear or sword, sometimes both, and his shield gleamed with the echo of every war ever fought. His chariot, pulled by horses that seemed made from smoke and flame, thundered into every fight, dragging fear and bravery in equal measure. Ares was the god of physical war, the chaos of bodies and blood, of roaring courage and shattering pain. He ruled not only the battles between armies, but the storms inside every heart. Passion, impulse, even rebellion were his domain. He was the force that rose in protest, the guardian of righteous anger, the reason some wars are fought not for conquest, but for justice or love. In every conflict, in every moment when fear and courage meet, Ares was there. The goddess of love, Aphrodite, saw in Ares what others missed, a wild devotion, a heart that burned too brightly to hide. While she was married to Hephaestus, it was Ares who made her feel alive. Their love was secret, dangerous, and full of fire. When Hephaestus caught them together and trapped them in a net, the other gods laughed. But Ares did not feel shame. He loved fiercely and openly, and Aphrodite always returned to him. Together they had children who carried their flame. Phobos, the spirit of fear, Deimos, the spirit of terror, Harmonia, the spirit of harmony. Even in chaos, love and balance could be born. Ares's myths are tales of violence and trial, but also of loyalty and strange mercy. When Cadmus, the hero who founded Thebes, killed Ares's sacred dragon, Ares made him atone by serving him for 8 years, but later forgave him, even letting Cadmus marry his daughter Harmonia. When the giant twins Otis and Ephialtes dared to attack Olympus, Ares rushed to defend his family, but was captured and locked in a bronze jar for over a year. The other gods laughed at his humiliation, but Artemis quietly freed him, and Ares held no grudge. Sometimes, even a god of war knows when to let wounds heal. Once, when his daughter Alcip was assaulted, Ares killed her attacker, the son of Poseidon. For this, he was put on trial by the gods on a hill that would later be called the Areopagus, the very first court of Athens. He was acquitted, for even the gods understood that some anger is righteous, some violence is just. Though not as loved as Athena or Apollo, Ares was worshipped throughout Greece, especially in places that knew the true price of battle, like Sparta, where warriors left offerings before heading to war. His altars saw more blood than prayers, not out of adoration, but from respect and fear. In Rome, Ares was transformed into Mars, a god of discipline and honor, but still blazing with that primal fire. Ares is often dismissed as reckless or cruel, but his true lesson is deeper. He is the god we hope never to need, but whose strength saves us when nothing else will. He teaches that rage can become protection, that courage can rise out of fear, that love worth fighting for is love that matters. He is the struggle inside us all, the push and pull between action and restraint, between chaos and control. So tonight, as you settle into the quiet, feel the last embers of courage warm your chest, not to make you restless, but to remind you that you are stronger than you know, braver than you believe. If you ever feel lost in the fight, be the fire. Sleep well, dream bold, and let Ares watch over you, not as a destroyer, but as a shield. Before there were gods shouting across the sky or hurling lightning into the clouds, before the great halls and epic battles, there was a flame, a small, gentle glow that held the darkness at bay. This was the spirit of Hestia, the eldest child of Cronus and Rhea, the sister of Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, and Hera. She was born before her siblings, and as the first, she was also the first to be swallowed by Cronus, her father who feared the power of his own children. For a time, Hestia lived in the deep hush inside Cronus, waiting quietly, neither angry nor afraid, just still. When Zeus finally rose up, freed his brothers and sisters, and led them to victory, Hestia emerged from darkness not hardened but softened, carrying with her a peace that the world had never known. While her brothers and sisters raced to claim kingdoms, oceans, skies, the wild earth, Hestia simply walked to the center and lit a flame. That was her throne, her power, the hearth. The hearth fire was everything in ancient Greece. It was the place where meals were cooked, stories were shared, prayers were whispered. It was the first fire lit in a new home and the last one to be put out when someone left or died. It was where you warmed your hands on a cold morning, where families gathered at night. The fire meant safety, belonging, and hope. And Hestia, as goddess of the hearth, was not above these moments. She was within them, quiet and steady, never demanding anything in return. Hestia was never pictured as fierce or wild, never crowned with jewels or riding in chariots. Her beauty was gentle, a simple braid, a soft robe, eyes shining with the calm of a banked fire. In a world full of storms, she was the pause. When you sat by a fire and let your breath slow, when the noise faded and the peace returned, you felt her there. Every home in Greece offered the first bit of every meal to Hestia. Every city had a sacred public hearth, its flame tended always by priestesses, never allowed to go out. Her presence blessed marriages and children, welcomed guests, and kept the home whole. No important promise was made without her flame as a witness. Without Hestia, there was no true home, no lasting community. She did not rule with orders or demands, she ruled by belonging. Unlike her siblings, Hestia did not seek out drama or glory. She did not boast or argue. She did something no other god had the strength for. When the young god Dionysus arrived and there were only 12 thrones on Olympus, Hestia stepped down without complaint. She chose not to fight for a seat because she knew she was needed at the center. Her flame burned in every temple and every house. While the other gods argued and chased after fame, she kept the peace, her presence holding all things together. Hestia, like Artemis and Athena, remained a virgin goddess, but her independence was quiet. She refused the hands of Poseidon and Apollo, asking Zeus instead for the right to remain undistracted, untied, simply herself. He agreed, and so she became not a mother or wife, but the warm heart of every family. Few myths are told about Hestia because her magic was never in spectacle. It was in every meal shared, every guest welcomed, every small kindness, every gentle touch. Her symbol was the ever-burning flame, passed from one fire to the next, and if it ever went out, it could be relit only by another flame that had never died. Her temples were hearths. Her worship was kindness, hospitality, and peace. Today, Hestia has no grand ruins, no epic stories written in her name. But she remains in the small things, In the morning light as you make tea, in the warmth of a blanket on tired shoulders, in the soft silence of a home when everyone is safe. She is the calm that wraps around you, the center you return to, the steady love that never fades. So tonight, as the world outside grows quiet and your heart slows beneath your ribs, imagine a gentle hearth just for you. No noise, no rush, only warmth and peace. That is Hestia, not a goddess who chases after you, but the one who waits always where you belong. Sleep well, tender flame. Let her arms hold you in stillness. Remember, you are not forgotten, you are not lost, you are home. Before rules and order, before golden temples and wise laws, there was a god who did not walk but danced into the world, Dionysus. He was the god of wine, wildness, and the sacred freedom that shakes off shame. Dionysus is never quiet. He laughs, he cries, he sings out loud, vines tangled in his hair and a knowing spark in his eyes. You do not call Dionysus politely. He bursts in, hands you a cup, and says, "Let go, be real, remember who you are." Dionysus's birth was pure chaos and miracle. He began as the child of Zeus, king of gods, and Semele, a bold mortal princess of Thebes. But Hera, queen of Olympus, was jealous and cruel, whispering doubts into Semele's ear. Semele asked Zeus to reveal his true divine self. Zeus did, and his thunder and lightning burned her away, but he snatched their unborn child and sewed the infant into his own thigh. Dionysus was born twice, once in fire, once in godly flesh. From the very start, he knew what it meant to be broken and reborn. Yet Hera did not stop. She chased Dionysus from place to place, forcing him to grow up in secret, hidden by loving hands. He was raised among nymphs in a wild, green land called Nyssa. There he learned to love freedom, music, and the taste of ripe grapes in the sun. His first teacher was a satyr named Silenus, half wise and half drunk, who showed him that laughter can heal, and that sometimes you have to lose yourself to find your true heart. Dionysus's greatest gift to the world was wine, not just a drink, but a lesson. He taught mortals how to turn simple grapes into something magical, something that brings joy, courage, and tears. His wine was never just for fun. It was a sacred ritual, a way to let go of heavy masks, to sing, to weep, to shout the truth you are too afraid to say. Dionysus is the god who says, there is freedom in letting yourself feel, in laughing until you cry, in dancing until you fall. He was never a lonely god. He moved through the forests with a wild parade, maenads, women who sang and danced with untamed joy, and satyrs, half goat, half man, always ready for a party. Their processions were more than celebrations. They were acts of rebellion against every rigid rule, every fake smile, every boring law. Dionysus taught that madness could be sacred, that breaking free could be holy. Dionysus could turn danger into magic. Once, pirates tried to kidnap him, thinking him just a pretty youth. But on their ship, he smiled. Vines twisted around the mast, sweet music filled the air, and Dionysus became a roaring lion. The pirates jumped into the sea and became dolphins, saved, but forever changed. Dionysus does not punish, he transforms. In Athens, the great city honored him with days of drama, the Dionysia, festivals of theater, masks, and stories, where tragedy and comedy were sacred, and every mask was a hidden truth. He loved deeply, often wildly, but none more tenderly than Ariadne, a princess left alone on an island, betrayed and forgotten. Dionysus found her, lifted her up, and crowned her with stars. Her sorrow became the sparkling corona borealis, because that is what Dionysus does. He does not erase pain, but changes it into something shining. Worship of Dionysus was nothing like the others. There were no silent marble halls, no stiff rituals. His followers celebrated in caves, in forests, at night with drums and torches. They wore masks and let go of their old selves. They danced, laughed, and sang, sometimes until dawn, knowing that being human is messy, loud, wild, and full of beauty. For Dionysus, to worship was to be alive, raw, and true. He was honored in secret places and wild festivals. His rites promised not safety or comfort, but transformation, a taste of ecstasy, a chance to become new. Even today, the idea of letting yourself go, of dancing away your worries, of finding honesty in joy or tears, is a gift from Dionysus. Dionysus is not only the god of wine and parties. He is the part of you that refuses to be tamed, the laughter that erupts when you are nervous, the tears that surprise you, the dance you do alone in the dark when no one is watching. He is the reminder that you are more than rules and shame. You are alive, wild, and beautiful. And sometimes the best thing you can do is let go and feel everything. So now, as you rest and the world grows quiet, imagine the gentle green vines curling around your dreams. Hear faint music in the distance, a whisper of drums, the promise of a celebration that never really ends. Know that Dionysus is smiling, somewhere just beyond the edge of sleep, and he is waiting for you to join the dance. In the first mornings of the world, when everything was still new and the air smelled like possibility, a cave on Mount Cyllene sheltered a birth like no other. Hermes came into the world not with a cry, but with a grin, a baby who already knew the punchline to every joke. His mother, Maia, was a shy nymph, hiding from Olympus's endless drama. Zeus was his father, but Hermes did not wait for his dad's approval. He was barely a day old before he had wriggled out of his blankets and set off on his first adventure. That first day, Hermes invented the lyre, plucking music from a tortoise shell and a few sheep guts. Before sunset, he had stolen 50 cattle from his half-brother Apollo, leaving backward footprints and homemade shoes to cover his tracks. When Apollo came raging, Hermes played innocent, strummed a tune, and smiled a baby's mischievous smile. Somehow the trick ended in laughter, not anger. Apollo got the lyre. Hermes got forgiveness and a best friend. Zeus just laughed and said, "Watch this one, he'll go far." Hermes's magic was not in strength or power, but in movement, change, and cleverness. Wherever things crossed paths, roads, boundaries, ideas, Hermes was there. He became the messenger of the gods, the one who could dart from sky to earth to underworld and back before dinner. He was the only god welcome everywhere, from stormy Olympus to silent Hades. He guided souls, delivered divine messages, protected travelers, and gave a secret wink to anyone making a clever deal. Hermes was the god of travelers and merchants, storytellers and athletes, thieves and inventors. He was patron of anyone who dared to try something new. His sandals had wings, his cap could make him vanish, and his staff, the caduceus, became a symbol of medicine, a sign that he could heal as well as trick. He moved like the breeze, always just ahead, always leaving a trace of laughter. He had a special talent for making friends, and for getting away with almost anything. When Zeus fell in love with Io and Hera turned her into a cow, Hermes lulled Argus, her 100-eyed guard, to sleep with music and stories before freeing Io. Hera, ever the artist in her anger, placed Argus's eyes on the peacock's tail as a tribute. Hermes loved a good laugh and a bit of chaos, but he also understood sadness and loss. When Persephone was taken by Hades, it was Hermes who slipped quietly into the underworld and brought her back, his words softening even the hardest hearts. When gods argued, Hermes brokered peace. When mortals worried, Hermes brought comfort and new ideas. Hermes rarely stayed in one place or with one lover. He fathered children, Pan, the wild god of the forests, and Hermaphroditus, whose story of unity and transformation reflected Hermes's own spirit. He was a companion more than a partner, a flirt and a friend who understood every language, from godly riddles to the gentle rustle of leaves. People worshipped Hermes on the road, not in great temples. Travelers built stone piles called herms at crossroads and city gates, leaving a coin, a prayer, or just a hope for safe passage. They knew that if they were lost, Hermes would find them. Hermes is the whisper of inspiration before a clever idea. He is the laugh that breaks a tense moment, the gentle nudge that says, "Try it," when you hesitate. He is the guide at every crossroads, real or imagined, reminding you that every step forward is its own kind of magic. Tonight, as your eyes grow heavy and your thoughts wander, imagine a cool breeze slipping through your dreams. See a figure in a winged cap and sandals, smiling, always in motion, always ready for a new story. If you are lost, he will show the way. If you hesitate, he will walk beside you. Hermes is with you, at the edge of dreams, at every new beginning, at every uncertain road. Sleep well, traveler. Hermes is already waiting for you in the morning, ready to walk beside you wherever you go. Long before cities rose or kingdoms fell, before people even learned to plant a seed or follow the moon through the seasons, the earth was a wild and wonder-filled place. In this untamed world walked Demeter, goddess of the grain, harvest, and the rich soil that brings life to every corner of the land. She was not a goddess of thunder or storms, but of the quiet sun after a long winter, of gentle warmth, green fields, and the soft miracle of growth. Wherever Demeter stepped, the earth blossomed in response. Grass uncurled at her feet, roots stretched deeper, and fruit hung heavy from the trees. It wasn't because she commanded it. It was because the land loved her, just as she loved every seed, every sprout, every golden wave of grain. She didn't want power for its own sake, and never demanded grand temples or gold. Her true worship was found in the simple acts of everyday life, in a shared loaf of bread, a field sown with hope, a mother feeding her child. In return, she gave the world the seasons, the time for sowing, the time for harvest, and the gentle, necessary pause when the earth rests. More than anything, Demeter was a mother. Her heart's deepest love was for her daughter Persephone. The stories sometimes say Persephone was Zeus's child, but it was Demeter who raised her with endless tenderness, watching her grow like the first green shoot after a cold frost. Persephone danced through meadows, laughed among wildflowers, and filled Demeter's days with joy that even the other gods dared not disturb. Their bond was sacred, gentle, and strong, a living reminder of the love that holds all things together. But in the shadows beneath the earth, Hades, lord of the underworld, watched Persephone and felt something new, a longing for her light. One day, as Persephone picked flowers in a sunlit meadow, the earth opened beneath her feet. Hades, riding a chariot of shadows, swept her down into the underworld. The flowers trembled. The meadow was left empty. And when Demeter found her daughter gone, her joy shattered. She searched the world, crossing oceans, mountains, and even disguising herself as a mortal, but no one would tell her the truth. In her grief and anger, Demeter withdrew her blessing from the land. Crops withered, fruit fell from the trees, and the earth grew cold. It was not punishment, but sorrow, the kind of sorrow that can freeze the heart of the world. Only when Helios, the sun, finally revealed what had happened, and Zeus could no longer ignore the prayers of starving mortals, did the truth come to light. Persephone in the underworld had been treated as a queen. Hades offered her riches and the silence of deep earth, but she had eaten 6 seeds of the pomegranate, the fruit of the dead. By ancient law, to eat of a land is to belong to it. A deal was struck. For half the year, Persephone would return to her mother, and the world would blossom with her joy. For the other half, she would live below with Hades, and the world would mourn, waiting for her return. And so the seasons were born, not just a pattern, but a story of love, loss, and reunion. When Persephone comes home, the flowers bloom, the fields grow green, and the earth is full of promise. When she leaves, Demeter's heart aches, and the world turns quiet, waiting for her warmth again. Demeter was honored not with violence, but with gratitude. Her greatest festival, the Eleusinian Mysteries, was celebrated each year in Eleusis. These secret rites didn't promise gold or power, but comfort and understanding. The gentle truth that, like the seed, life must sometimes sleep in darkness before it can bloom again. Women and men whispered her name as they planted seeds beneath the moon, knowing that Demeter's gift was the promise of return. She is the goddess of comfort and continuity, of return and hope. Demeter is deeply human because she feels deeply. She grieves, she loves, she waits, she forgives. She shows us that sorrow is not weakness, that holding back can be healing, and that every winter is only a pause before spring. So tonight, as the day comes to an end, picture golden fields swaying in a soft breeze, the kind of breeze that promises warmth even in the heart of winter. Let your worries fall like seeds into the earth of sleep, knowing they too will bloom in time. Feel Demeter's gentle arms around you, steady, warm, and patient. "Sleep well, beloved. The harvest will always return." When the world was still new and the gods were just learning how to shape mountains and rivers, a child was born whose story did not begin with applause. His name was Hephaestus, the god of fire and forge. Unlike the shining gods who danced in the clouds, Hephaestus came into the world quietly, born, some say, from Hera alone in a moment of wounded pride. Others say from both Zeus and Hera. But no matter the tale, one thing is always true. Hephaestus was not the picture of perfection. Hephaestus was born with a limp, legs twisted in a way that did not fit the polished image of Olympus. His own mother, Hera, could not bear his difference and cast him from the mountain. Others say Zeus threw him down in anger. For a whole day and night, Hephaestus fell through the sky, landing at last in the soft arms of the sea. There, gentle sea nymphs rescued him, hiding him away in cool caves and salt-lit grottos beneath the waves. It was in these quiet places, far from judgment and laughter, that Hephaestus found his purpose. While other gods wore crowns and jewels, he worked with fire and metal. He learned to hammer and bend, to melt and shape, finding beauty in sparks and scars. Creating was how Hephaestus healed. Every blow of his hammer was a memory made solid. Every flame in his forge was a bit of hope. He made beautiful things not to be praised, but because creation was the way he survived. Years passed, and the world forgot the strange god of the sea. But Hephaestus never stopped making. In time, he sent a gift to Olympus, a golden throne so perfect, Hera could not resist it. But as soon as she sat down, the throne trapped her, held tight with invisible chains. None of the gods could free her. They begged Hephaestus to return. He refused, not out of cruelty, but because he needed to be seen, truly seen, for all that he was. Eventually, Dionysus found him, offered him kindness, and brought him back to Olympus, not as a rejected child, but as a master craftsman. In the heart of a volcano under Mount Etna or deep within the earth, Hephaestus built his legendary forge. There, with the help of cyclopes and elemental spirits, he shaped the wonders of the gods. Zeus's thunderbolts, Achilles' unbreakable armor, Helios's golden chariot, the chains that bound Prometheus, and even living statues of gold and silver. Hephaestus made more than weapons and tools. He crafted the first woman, Pandora, her beauty sculpted with patience and pain, holding a jar that would change the fate of the world. Every creation he made held a piece of his own story, a lesson that true beauty is not perfect, but meaningful. Hephaestus's heart was tender and strong, but his love life was complicated. He was married by decree to Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty, in what may have been a gift or a cruel test. He loved her deeply, but she did not return that love. Her heart was wild, running to Ares, god of war. When Hephaestus found out, he did not scream or fight. Instead, he crafted a net, finer than any web, stronger than any vow. He caught them, called the gods to witness, not out of revenge, but for truth. The gods laughed, the shame was sharp, but Hephaestus did not weep. He simply returned to his forge. Some things break, some things do not love you back, but still you keep creating. Hephaestus was worshipped not in gold-filled temples, but in every workshop, every place where people worked with their hands, with heat and hope. Blacksmiths, potters, builders, and inventors looked to him. His temples were forges. His prayers were the clang of hammer on anvil, the glow of iron in fire. Hephaestus teaches that power is not only for the beautiful, that pain can become art, and that what makes you different can make you strong. He reminds us that even if you are thrown away, even if you fall, you can still rise, stronger, wiser, and more creative. Sometimes the quietest flame burns the longest. So tonight, as you rest, imagine the steady glow of a forge in the dark, sparks rising, warmth spreading. Know that every scar can become a story, every failure a lesson, every pain a new creation. Hephaestus, the quiet god of the forge, works quietly in every heart, turning hardship into beauty, loneliness into strength. Sleep well, maker. The world is shaped by hands like yours.